Hey everybody, welcome to the 22nd episode of Comic Art Live. I'm Bill Cox. If you didn't know that already, it says it right down there. I'm the owner of Comic Art Fans, and I'm your host or moderator of our chats every week or almost every week. And I'm going to bring in the other co-hosts of the show one at a time. I'm going to introduce first to you Will Gabrielle. Will's from comicartpage.com, longtime dealer, good friend. Great art collection, by the way. We just don't get to see everything. Wish we could sometimes. And next up, Glenn Brunswick, panelpageart.com. Some would say you should call your website coverpageart.com because you have more.
It doesn't have that Stan Lee alliteration thing I was going for is the problem.
Yeah. I know how it goes, but panelpageart.com. Got to check that one out. And last but not least, we've got Mike Berkey from RamitaMan.com sporting some kind of a goatee that we haven't seen before.
Oh, I have it all the time.
Not that, I don't know. Maybe you're using some, I don't know. Something.
Yeah, I'm using something.
All right. Hey, well, before we get started with our guest tonight, I realized that this is the last show we're doing before Christmas. So I wanted to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And I can't tell you, I have had a fantastic time doing this show with you guys.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. And Happy New Year, and Happy New Year.
Happy Hanukkah, since the Festival of Lights is
Hanukkah and season's greetings and everything.
Christmas, all of it.
There you are. All right. Well, I want to bring in tonight's guest, Michael Lovitz. Hey, Michael.
Right.
How's it going?
Hey.
What happened to the Festivus for the rest of us?
Yeah, Festivus from Seinfeld, right?
There you go.
Hey. So Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on here. I'm glad you're taking the time this evening to do this. But, I just want to jump right in because I know you've collected for a really long time. But I want to know what got you started collecting original comic art. I'm just going right to the source here to get your story.
I'm not entirely sure what it was that prompted me to go after original art, per se. But I know at one of the first of the few conventions I went to in Philadelphia, when I was old enough to convince my parents to let me take the train to Center City to go to the I think they were creation conventions back then, and wander around. And it was my senior year of high school. I remember that in particular, and I found myself in a line at one point, and the line, there was an artist at the front of the line, and these people were all lined up. I'm like, what's this for? And I had the last in the line sign at that point. And it was for Walt Simonson, who was doing sketches.
Good line.
And
Nice.
and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. I've never to have an original sketch. That would be neat. So I'm in line, and we're waiting, and it comes down to the final two of us in line, and Walt says, guys, I'm really sorry. I've only got one sheet of paper left. So tell me what character you want, and I'll decide which one I want to draw.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. So the guy in front of me selected Manhunter, obviously, given the time period. This was the early 80s. And I sat there and was like, oh, I was hoping for Thor. And Walt goes, I haven't drawn Thor all day. That sounds great.
Oh, wow.
So I got the
cool.
Thor, and now as a collector, I feel really bad for whoever was in line in front of me. That's
not that bad. A little bad. It's funny you say that, Michael, because I randomly get into lines wherever I see them. Like if I just see a line, I jump right in because you never know. There could be something good at the end of that line. So
yeah, you have to at least ask.
It's good. It's good. At a certain point, you figured out it was Walt Simonson. It wasn't like you. You're just like waiting, and it's like I don't know. It could be the bus. It could be, who knows? It's at the end of that.
Yeah, this is the shuttle to the other convention site. I think I sent you a link for that.
Yes,
site.
you did. I was just going to show it.
Oh, let's take a look. Oh, how cool is that?
1980. Wow.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
So it must have been that was my sophomore year then.
Wow.
Or junior. No, it must have been junior because it was, yeah. But
It's okay. It gets a little foggier as we
it's a hell of a Thor.
That is a great Thor.
Yeah.
And he had just done that early run where he was being inked by
Yes.
Dezaniga.
Dezaniga, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's before like when is that? When is his famous run period? Like what?
Yeah,
what
that's like 83, 84, isn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
83.
It looks like he's like warming up for that. This looks like he's getting excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had just stepped in the shoes of Big John Buscema, so
Right.
it was a bit of a shock to go between those two styles, but it was a really neat rendition, and I loved his Thor. And so when he was like, "Yeah, you can, yeah, I'll do the Thor," I'm like, "Man,
I'll tell you what. I think it's. You should bring that back up, Bill. I think his signature is even cooler than the drawing.
I think the drawing has a lot of movement in it, and the cape and the hammer, and I mean that's a great
Right, that looks like a closer. That looks more like his rendition, his famous Beta Ray Bill run era type of drawing. I'm surprised. That looks good.
Yeah, when you said he was warming up for Thor, I didn't know if you meant Thor or Walt, because Thor looks like he's getting ready to run right at you.
Yeah. He's pretty warm.
Well, I could tell you, Michael, the first artist line I ever waited in was a Walt Simonson line, and when I got to the end of the line, he told me he wasn't drawing anymore. So I know what that other guy felt like. I literally
got that other guy, Bill.
It might have been you, Bill. You might be the Manhunter guy.
I swear to God, it was probably around 1980, but this would have been in Ohio, though. I think this was at the the show in Columbus back around 1980.
States, I don't know.
Yeah. But
interestingly enough, at this same show, I got a different sketch from another artist because there was this girl that I really liked, and she was a big Star Wars fan, and Howard Chaykin was at the convention, and so I got in line and asked Howard Chaykin to do a Darth Vader, which I gave to her, and she had a very unremarkable reaction. But at the time, Chaykin was griping because he hated the work he did on Star Wars. Is what he had shared. And I had no idea. I think it was because it was either super rushed or it was incredibly controlled by the studio and he was forced to redraw parts of it, or whatever it was, that he just hated it. And he grumbled and charged me double to do the sketch because he didn't want to do Star Wars.
What did he do, from $10 to $20 or what?
Yeah, I think Walt was either 10 or 20, and
back then that's
I think it was 25 for Chaykin.
Wow!
And you got such a great reaction from that.
The $25 gift, huh?
It was awful. In the end, it worked out. So. All right. I was fine. Okay.
Well, that's surprising. So, I mean, after that, did you, like your next show, did you get more art, or did you kind of pass it up for a while?
I really didn't. I didn't really do much in the way of art for a while. I went to college, went to law school, and really didn't go to many shows at that point. I was just, busy and not a whole lot of extra income because I put myself through law school and. But I reached the end of law school and at that point was looking to pay off my student loans because it was 1989, so there was a bit of a recession in the legal profession. So way too many people going to law school and more than there were jobs available. So my first job out of law school, I was earning $30,000 a year, which maybe in '89 sounded like a reasonable amount, but I had these, I had like $50,000 in student loans, so it didn't seem like a great amount. So I took my then comic book collection, which was some 26,000 comics, and paired up with Nick Barucci. This was prior to his Dynamic Forces days, and the two of us used to set up at shows. The Fred Greenberg shows is where we started. Our first was in New York at one of his big weekend shows in New York just after the Batman movie had come out, the original one. And so there we were selling comics, and then suddenly I'm surrounded by artists and art dealers, and that's when I just started buying the artwork, because as fun as it was to buy comics, once you start dealing, you start realizing all this stuff is fungible. I can sell this copy of Fantastic Four 26 because I know I can buy another copy somewhere else, either from another dealer or from someone selling their collection, whatever it might be. They're almost interchangeable. And yes, you try to work your way up to nicer and nicer copies, but pretty much there were tons of them out there in existence. Whereas this page or this cover from this particular issue is one of a kind. And so, yeah, that's right, Will. So that was like, this is kind of cool. I have the only, Teen Titans Baxter page, issue 1, page 6 kind of a thing. And you're like, I own the only one in existence. This is so cool. And so that bug bit me. I mean, I was always a collector. Obviously, if I had 26,000 comics, I was a bit of a hoarder already. And so I just transferred the hoarding from comic books to comic art, and the rest is kind of history.
So so On the Road with Nick Barucci, that sounds like the movie, like Thelma and Louise was like based on that on you two guys.
No, more like have you ever seen Euro Trip? It was more along those lines.
That's where the idea came from. Huh?
Yeah, we pulled some nasty pranks on Nick at a few of those shows. But
well, feel free to share. I mean, that we're all about sharing here.
They were funnier at the time than they would be in retrospect.
I like taking his
especially
underpants.
you and not Nick.
There was one where we had gone to Little Italy for dinner because Nick insisted every time to go to Little Italy. Imagine in New York, he had to go to Little Italy, Mr. Barucci. And so we were there, and he was, flirting with people and flirting with the waitresses, and he stayed and wanted to go out and everything. And so he came home. Well, it's New York, so at probably 3, 4 in the morning, when the show, we had to be down there at 8. Of course, he slept in, and so one of my cohorts and I, we decided to, once he joined the show, we got the name of the girl, so we had an announcement made that this girl was waiting for Nick at the main entrance, and he had no idea what she looked like. So he was just figuring, I'll just fake it once I get down there. And so he kept going down trying to find this girl that he wasn't sure if he could remember he hooked up with or not, or made any promises to or not. And so that kind of stuff we used to have a little fun at Nick's expense.
Sounds like fun.
That sounds like something born out of law school. A little more complex of a prank.
Exactly.
Hey, Mike, just out of curiosity, do you still have the first piece of art? Do you remember the first piece of art you ever bought? And do you still have it?
That was that Thor piece.
I mean, published piece of art.
Oh,
just curious.
I don't even know what that was, to be honest. That all blurs together. There were so many things, and unfortunately, as a former hoarder, I don't consider myself a hoarder quite as much as I used to. As a reformed hoarder, that all just blurred together. There reached a point, and Will, you might have seen it on one of your visits to my house. There was a point where I had the pages just stacked one on top of each other, and they literally came up to my neck. Just these like 4,000 to 5,000 pages of art.
Well, they say that addicts don't remember a lot that went on when they were using. So
yeah.
Now you were a little more organized when, and I don't remember exactly when we met, but sometime in the '90s. But yeah, Michael used to host art get-togethers, and that's how we became even friendlier. And I would come over there sometimes. We'd do deals. But I remember on your very upper level, you had like sort of an office with your comic art, and then you had like another bedroom, and that was just like storage for comic art. And maybe the piles were like knee level. And then there was like a closet that had more Itoyas than I could count, and they were all labeled. And it was a lot of George Perez. I seem to remember a lot of George Perez.
Just a little.
Yeah.
And in fact, let me see if this works. Yeah, you can see the Itoya collection is still behind me.
That's all art, huh? In those?
Holy cow.
So the Itoyas live.
But they're not stacked this high in the closet any longer.
Yeah, and you know, I've thought about doing that whole giant safe thing, but it would just be too difficult to get down 3 stories. A 2,000-pound safe going down stairs.
Oh, you live in a basement?
Well, we're in the Hollywood Hills, so
okay.
The top level of the house is street level.
Oh, okay.
And you can't quite see it, but I'm in this room that has no windows.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And just one door. So it's really great for the comic art stuff because it's dark and quiet, and I don't have to worry about any UV issues, any moisture issues. But I'm in the lowest level of the house, so that's 3 flights to the street level.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, Mike, because I bought a 3,000-pound safe, and I'm on a 2nd level, and I had 3 different companies that refused to lift it up my steps because I have steps that go up like an L, up and to the left.
Oh gosh!
And the girl I dated, she had a boyfriend. No, I'm sorry, girl I dated, she had her mom's boyfriend. Anyway, he got this electric battery operated dolly and I paid him $500 and he was able to get it up the steps, and I have my safe in my room. I said, if I sell the house, the safe goes with it because there's no way I'm ever getting it out.
We don't have basements in LA because they're illegal here. So
Mike's in a basement.
I didn't know that.
No, Mike's not in a basement. He's on the 1st floor.
Yeah, but it's underground though, right?
No.
Oh, I thought your first level was underground.
Behind me is underground, but in front of me is not.
Oh, I see. It's on a hill.
For whatever reason, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in New York. They have basements, but like in LA here, they just don't. None of the houses we ever looked at had basements. I
know no basements in Florida. I know that because of this. Yeah,
it's probably the earthquake stuff.
Some areas it's the soil because Arizona people have basements, but it's very expensive to dig.
Right.
Clay. So.
Well, plus I know just below us in what we refer to as the flats, because we're in the hills, they're on the flats. When they have earthquakes, the soil it's almost like quicksand.
Yeah, it moves.
So having a basement in the middle of that, I imagine would
not be a good idea.
Yeah,
hard to get it to
stable
stress test and everything. Right. So
it'd be tough. It's tough in an earthquake to get all those Itoyas out of the house, huh? How do you do that?
Trust me, they're all numbered, and I know which 4 numbers I have to grab that have the highest value.
Okay, good.
I say the same thing in Ohio when we have a tornado. I always said if there was a fire or something, I told my brother, there's a spot. They throw everything out the window and just run for it.
Throw the 3,000-pound safe out of the window.
Yeah.
No, so there are enough fires in LA that I've figured out. Okay, what do I have to grab first?
Right.
After the work computer comes Itoya's number 1, 2, 7.
Right.
Well, don't give it all away on in.
It's a scary thought, but something you do always have to have in your head as a plan, just in case.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, fire and theft are the 2 things that could ruin your collection. Fire and theft. I said everything. Fire and theft are the 2 things on my mind every day.
But the things that are really doing it are moisture and light more than anything, because that's
right. Or hot coffee.
Yeah, I'd say fire and theft.
I don't know.
So Michael, well, if you care to share when you moved to California, because I think when you moved to California from Philly, I think you sort of cured yourself partially of hoarding. if you remember what you left behind.
Oh man, what I left behind. Between the comics and the statues, the comics all I think went to Anthony. Ended up coming and buying all my comics. The statue collection, I found a statue dealer who came, and that was awful. And in terms of the original art, I had to I had to move it out. I wouldn't give it to a mover. And so even though the rest of my furniture and my belongings, my clothes, my car, all of that stuff went by movers, the artwork I just took with me every time I traveled back and forth. Mm-hmm. So I would take extra suitcases, fill them with the folios, and travel with them that way. And I figured, well, no one in TSA is going to care about these folios. They're not going to know what it is. That was safer to be in those hands for a couple of hours than it was to try to travel across the country. But is there something I left behind that I don't remember, Will?
No, that's when you gave me all that consignment.
Oh well, yeah.
So there were I think something like 4,000 pages that you left. It was 45 Itoyas plus a big stack. I mean, I filled up the back of my truck. I pulled up in front of your house one day, and we just filled the back of my truck.
There was a stage where I literally was just buying everything that either I liked or that seemed to have some sort of emotional attachment or potential to do something. and then Spencer Beck would run all of these sales where suddenly, oh, Phil Jimenez, his artwork is 50% off during these sales, and I would be like, great, I'll take everything. No, it's not quite that bad.
I like the theory of potential emotional attachment.
Exactly. I will grow to love this. I just know.
I like that. This is why relationships never work out, by the way.
But yeah, so I would just buy and buy and buy and buy, and it's like, wait, these are only $5 a piece. They're too cheap not to buy them. I have to buy all of these pages.
Yeah. You got a lot of Inkers shares. I know that. Yeah. A lot of stuff came from Inkers.
Yeah, I lucked out in that regard, and was buying at a time when the kinds of things I was looking at, because I was never a cover guy at first. I was always an interiors guy.
Me too.
Because I love sequential pages. I love the storytelling. I love being able to flip from one page to the next, and it's like I'm reading the comic again, just without the color. So that was always for me the real focus, and most other people were really more concentrating on covers and splashes, and I was more invested in those interiors, just regular.
Hey, I loved you and Berkey for that, because each of you often traded me covers for interiors, and that just worked out great.
Yeah, trust me, if I could go back 40 years and tell myself, don't do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But think about it, Mike. Though a lot of times you can get a whole story for almost the same price as a cover. That's why I thought, I'd rather have the story. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
True.
And then I was able to cut deals with like people like Spencer when Perez returned to the Avengers in the late 90s, and Mancuda went and he got his dibs on the covers. Mm-hmm. So he made his deal, which was an unbelievably good deal, which he didn't reveal, so I'm not going to go into. It's not mine to share, but he had a really sweet deal. But he was buying sight unseen, so it was there was some risk, and obviously a lot of reward given the covers that George ended up doing. So I did something similar with the interiors, and I cut a deal where I got a set price for each issue, so I'd get the entire book, and basically from issue 7, I did from 7 to 12. Then I did 15. Then George was off for 3 issues. 3 issues. Then I did 19 through 25, and then picked up again. I think 31. Well, 30. Towards the end of his run, it was a little sketchy because he was still having medical issues on and off. But
and do you know at that time what title you and Mancuda were given as a result of that?
Sure,
that deal?
we were the co-rulers of the Perez universe.
That's right.
Trust me, he still emails me, "Hey, co-ruler, how are you?"
Are those issues in the Itoyas behind you still, or do you still have those? Or?
So the only Ironically, the only piece of art I own from that Volume 3 Avengers run that George did is a cover.
Oh, that's funny.
You got it from Mancuda then?
Well, indirectly, yes.
Yeah. From who he consulted.
So
All the interiors
every,
are gone, in
every
fact.
piece of art that you bought from that run, you sold. Everything?
Yeah, I held on for a while to about 4 complete issues, and then those one by one were taken from me. And this is one of the other things I would tell my younger self if I was smarter about it. For whatever reason, I'm a soft touch when it comes to other collectors. So someone saying, "Oh my God, this was my favorite blank, and it would be so cool to own blank," and I look at it and I've got, multiples of whatever this person's interested in. I'm like, okay, I can share. I don't have
Right.
to be that kind of a hoarder. I can be someone who supports the other collectors, makes collecting fun, makes new collectors out of everyone. And again, it's like, what are you doing? You're creating competition for yourself. You're what are you thinking?
It all goes back to that Simonson piece. They're trying to just make up for that poor guy that didn't get,
The guilt.
his Manhunter. Yeah.
It's the Jewish guilt. It's just it's never.
I'm getting you a Make Collecting Fun T-shirt.
I like that.
Perfect.
You better be careful, Mike. People are going to start calling you a flipper.
No, they're gonna be calling him with their sob stories of how they got
exactly.
on this. This is my favorite, and
My cat died on the day that I read that issue, and I'd love to have
I
it.
was in the hospital when my mom bought me that comic book.
you know what's funny, Glenn? I think I actually had somebody tell me that once.
That their
It
cat
might have been
died?
a dog, not a cat, but it was an animal. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you sell the piece?
I don't remember. It was this little.
I don't need to ask Michael because I know he already sold the piece. So.
The interesting flip to that is that at one point I was trying to collect all of the pages from the New Teen Titans Baxter issue 1, and of course I was in New York when Albert had them originally and didn't buy them because at the time they were so expensive in my mind. Because I was buying up the original pages from the original run from like Romeo Tangal, and I was paying like $75 or $85 a page, and now the George inked ones are $200 a page. And I'm thinking that's way too expensive. Anyway, I was trying to put it all back together, and I managed to gather all but like 3 pages, only to find out that the person who had the splash page and a few other pages, but said he would never sell the splash because when he was in the hospital as a kid dying, that was the comic that he had that he read over and over and over and over again. And so he's never going to sell it. He's going to keep it until he dies. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to complete this issue.
Well, he's in the hospital dying.
Yeah, he might be dead already.
He had recovered. Please.
But your fellow co-ruler would tell you all you have to do is outlive. You might only own it for 2 or 3 years past the other guy, but you just got to outlive him.
Either that or find out what he's allergic to.
I gave up outliving and just figured, you know what? I can now make some money off of these pages that I've hoarded and paid, $400 for, and now can sell for.
Wouldn't you rather live a long life than be mercenary?
Yes. I would. I'm looking forward to that. So, but Bill, back to your question about the earliest stuff that I, the first page. I can't remember the first, but I know amongst the first were some early Perez Teen Titans pages, and I know one of the first shows I went to was a Maryland show where he was set up, and he actually had not only Titans at the show, but one of the biggest regressive pieces that I've parted with, he had this really cool Perez FF piece from issue 172. And it's a double-page spread of the Thing having just defeated the Destroyer, and Galactus comes looming up in front of him. And I think at the time George wanted something like $400 for it. It was really expensive, but it was like, wow, this is so vintage. This is so cool. And I ended up trading it probably 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what I traded it for, or I sold it because I was buying, down payment on the house or whatever it was that I was thinking, here I can sell one piece and get most of the money I need for X.
I think that was on the stairwell to your top level. That was framed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that's one that I would love to get back again, but
that might have been me that bought it. I don't, but I yeah.
It wasn't. It was Dan Drummond.
Okay. But I did get an FF double spread from you. Maybe it was Buscema.
I don't know, because he didn't do very many.
Yeah.
Which was.
But I do remember the piece, and you had another one that was it was in a frame, but it was on the floor, and I think that's why I'm mixing them up. But the other one that I did get, it was on the floor, so I guess it wasn't quite as. It's probably why you let it go.
Yeah, I think there were more panels to it, and I think I remember that one. It was Gore telling what happened to him for him to cause him to come to Earth, and the faces of the FF were on the sides of the pages.
Yeah, that sounds, yeah.
So that wasn't, for me, it wasn't as dramatic. I was a big Galactus fan, still am. And
well, I'd be happy to buy all the art that's on your floor. Floor art sounds cheaper.
There was a lot.
There was so much. So much.
So, hey, there is a comment, let's see, where was it? From Michael, where he said, can I have your Arthur Adams FF cover? It brings me back to my childhood. So I maybe we could show that particular piece of art.
Let's take a look. Let's see his childhood.
Let's see, where is it? It is. I had to do this in 2 different images because it's so large.
It's probably the best Art Adams commission ever done.
Where's Galactus? I can't find him.
There, how's that?
There you go.
There you go.
This was what a story on this one. So I was talking to Art. It was a month after my 50th birthday, and I asked if he was doing commissions, cover recreation type commissions, but I had this weird variant, and I said, the FF100. He's like, oh no, I've already done the FF100. I said, no, wait, but here's the thing. If you look at the FF100, which is, the Fantastic Four surrounded by, some of their biggest villains, all, trying to defend themselves from this coming onslaught. I said, the problem is there's so many characters missing from this image. And what I'd love to see is your interpretation of the FF100. Use whatever characters you want. My only request is Galactus somewhere, but other than that, knock yourself out. And so he's the one who came up with this idea, which is basically take the FF100, and if you were the cameraman, step back a few yards and pan out a bit. And,
right.
And
brilliant idea.
So I give full credit to Art, because all I had was kind of the concept, but he's the one who actually, came up with this exact layout and structure. And it took him 3 years to complete it. And he kept apologizing, and then I think after 1.5 years, he sent me some of the thumbnails, and I was like, "Don't apologize. Take your time. Whatever you want." This was amazing, and so I didn't expect anywhere near the number of characters that he ended up putting in here.
Wow.
Although at one point I did feel guilty because you can see Daredevil, you can see Thor, and Black Panther, and the Inhumans. So there are some characters in here. It's not just villains. It's really characters that appeared in the first 100 issues.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man. And so my only thought was, wait a minute, where are the Avengers and the X-Men from? And I thought, no, I can't say anything.
Okay.
Right.
Where is he going to squeeze them in? It's too late. I'm not saying it.
Well, I was going to ask you. So he actually sent you some prelims and whatnot. So you knew what you were kind of getting after a year or so.
Yeah, and it was like just from his roughs, I was blown away, and the finished piece was just, oh my God. And of course he delivered it to me in San Diego, so it was the 3rd anniversary of when I commissioned it. He brought it to San Diego so I could pick it up there, because it was a show we were both doing, and he had posted it on his Facebook, and he had like a half dozen or more offers to buy it before he actually delivered it to me at multiples of what I had paid him for it. So I felt really bad because I was like, oh my God, you did so much work. I feel awful. And he's like, don't feel bad. As a result of my posting this, I've gotten, I forgot how many he got. I want to say like 8 people come to him to do pieces of that kind of scale, but at like $25,000 or $30,000. So he said, "This is great. I'm gonna be set for a while. This is awesome." So
no, that's so at your 65th birthday.
No, next year.
Next year.
I'm going to commission him for my 60th. I already know exactly what I want to do.
Okay.
So,
no, I was just going to say you pan out even further, so you get those missing Avengers and X-Men. Maybe Aunt Petunia, even though she never appeared, but we always felt like she was there because Ben and his
where's Willie Lumpkin? Where's Stan Lee and Jack Kirby? They were in.
They were.
Where's is the Yancey Street sign in there somewhere? I hope, like at least.
I don't think so. I'll have to look
high in the face or something with the Yancey.
Yeah, really. But yeah, no, I have a different character in mind for 60th. So
okay.
Hopefully, I'll be able to afford it, and he'll have the time.
That is probably one of the most or well-known commissions ever to have been posted to CAF. That's for sure.
Well, and trust me, I have connections at Marvel, and so once I got this, I kept sending it to people at Marvel, going, "Hey, if you ever relaunch FF, this will be a really great poster, or this will be a really great piece." And they did. They ended up using it for the variant covers on issues 1 and 2 of the relaunch. So.
Very nice.
In two pieces. They used it in 2 pieces.
Yeah, they had to break it up. So
yeah, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see everything. You're right.
Right.
It's a wraparound cover for both issues 1 and 2.
Wow. Great marketing. Get you to buy both.
Exactly. But now it's worth more. It's published. So.
We did leave out Herbie the robot. There you go.
Well, he wasn't in the first 100 issues.
Oh, there you go. That is true.
But he was associated with FF and Kirby, so I can see the connection. In fact, Will, I have the actual splash page with the first appearance of Herbie in the comics,
which is
the FF 209 that burned in. And the splash
I didn't realize
page
that was. I know. I didn't. I just put that together. I didn't realize that was the first.
Yeah, it's Mr. Fantastic creating Herbie in the splash page.
Okay.
He's not fully formed in the splash page, but he's
there. Yeah.
He's assembling him.
Yeah. No, that predates the cartoon then, or does it?
No, it was after.
No, I think the cartoon is first.
Cartoon was first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
We'll see. I've got a few pieces of artwork to talk about, Michael.
Yeah, let's see what Michael has up his sleeve.
All right. Well, let's start off with something colorful.
Oh, I was there when you bought that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So as a kid, this was a great piece. This poster was on my college dorm wall, in fact, because it was in the 80s, I guess around 84, DC launched a poster program, some sort of upscale posters. This was the first one. They did the Legion of Superheroes, which was like 10 feet wide, by Keith Giffen, and had all of the Legion. I forget the other ones that they had, but this was the very first. And so this was hanging on my wall for many years. It was in college. It was wherever I lived while I was in law school, and even beyond. And when the original came available, I just thought this was the perfect Titans piece to own. It's the first 3 years worth of storylines, all within the details that are set in there. It's mixed media, so it's George's painted work, and it's just such a gorgeous piece.
It's huge.
And it is huge, yeah.
I mean, we don't have to say who had it unless you want to, but I was involved when he got this, and this sat in my office for a few months before I delivered it to him, and then he held it for several years before you got it. But it's a huge piece.
Well, I was in the booth when he was vacillating for like an hour or two whether or not he was going to buy that piece, and I just remember the angst-ridden decision-making process that you went through before you decided to pull the trigger and trying to negotiate that particular dealer down, and having little luck and finally relenting because it was so beautiful.
Well, the price had gone up considerably since he first got it to when he released it. So understandably so. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me the reason for the haggling is because when I mentioned before I'm no longer quite the hoarder I used to be. I reached a stage in the early years when I was buying nonstop. Because it was in the midst of the real estate boom in the early aughts in Philadelphia, and so the house value would go up $100,000. I'd refinance and take out some additional money and spend it on art, and you keep doing that long enough, and suddenly, you're never paying off your mortgage. You've got a great art collection. But you're not doing a whole lot for your finances. And so when I moved to California and we bought the house that I live in currently, my husband and I decided to get rid of all of our debt. So we paid off all credit card debt. I paid off all, the student loan was paid off, all the car loans were paid off, everything was paid off. So that the only bill we have each month reliably is the mortgage. And everything else is just I pay with cash. Or pay credit card that I pay off at the end of the month. And so when it comes to art now, I'm only buying if I have the money that I made from sales of other art. And so this was such a big number. I was like, all right, what am I going to sell to be able to pay for this? And luckily, one of the things I did manage to buy in bulk at one point were Ron Lim pages from the Infinity Gauntlet series, from mostly issues 5 and 6, and some from issue 4. And when Glenn was overhearing me discussing this, I made the decision, okay, I'll just take these Infinity Gauntlet pages and sell off enough to be able to afford this piece. And luckily that worked, because at that point the Thanos in Avengers was heating up enough that people were really actively buying those Gauntlet pages. So, but yeah, if I could have sold fewer of them to pay for this, I would have been happier. But in the end, it was like I had enough to float it. So,
it's one of those pieces. I mean, you love it. You have quite a history. I was familiar with it, but you have a real history with it, and it is one of those pieces when you see it in person, it is stunning because, like you said, the painted work. Some artists, when they go from line work to painted work, doesn't translate so well, but George can nail it with a paintbrush. And beautiful piece. And then when you see the scale, and I'm not one that normally gets sort of overwhelmed by oversized pieces, but it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, and the thing that it has in common with the Adams piece is it's the type of piece where when you start looking more closely, you see things you hadn't seen the first time. There are little details that you didn't realize were put in there. And it's the thought process that went behind the creation is just mind-boggling when you start looking.
I just remember, Michael, at the end of that whole thing, you looked at me and you were like, did I make the right decision?
Trust me, you were not the only person I asked that question of. In fact, Dan Durgan I was talking to Dan Jurgens and at that same show and showed it to him. He's like, no, I think you made the right decision. If that went into auction, that number would be hit easily, maybe more. So
no, I think I told you, like, oh, come on, it's like you love it, it's amazing. I mean, how could it be the wrong decision?
Right.
And I meant that. I mean, it's a fantastic, phenomenal piece.
But real quick, what's even funnier is how many calls during San Diego that I haven't attended that you hear about some deal and did I make the right decision? The deal's done. Doesn't even matter what I tell you at this point. But how many calls every San Diego reliably each day that come in with that same question? It's funny.
No, that is true. That is probably the most often asked question, but it is after the fact. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But
no, make them feel bad.
Yeah, right. You made it.
Oh my God! What did you do, Michael? What?
All right, Bill. What else have you got for us?
All right, another piece with a lot of detail.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Trophy Room from Future Imperfect issue 1.
Yeah. Even in one of your alt images, you had like a guide to it, so you could kind of spot everything that was put into this image. It was pretty. I spent like 5 minutes looking it over because I'm like, that's not in there. I know Michael said it's in there, but it's not in. And then sure enough, it was in there.
When you start finding things like the city of Kandor, it's like.
Yeah.
When you think about all those naked superheroes, it's just disgusting.
There was one on your map I couldn't find. I don't remember which one. It wasn't the portrait of Superman. It wasn't the city of Kandor. It was something else. I could not find it.
If you know what it is at some point, you'll tell me, and I'll tell you where to look for it.
Yeah.
But there's even things like that you wouldn't even realize, which is if you look at the plant, okay, where Captain America's shield is, on the top of that there's a plant growing, and it's growing inside the Negaband from Captain Marvel. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. That's not
a plant. It's a chia pet.
Well, is that Man Thing? Is that, we don't know. No, this piece was awesome, and it was offered to me at one point, and again, all of this stuff historically is the same kind of story, Glenn, which is it's offered to you at a number, and you're like, oh man, really that much?
Right.
I don't know. Should I? And okay, well, this is more than 10 years now where I can look back and say, yeah, that was worth it. That was.
Yeah, it always seems like when you're offered something really good, it's like you really want it, but it's like always just like more than you want to pay. You're just like, I mean, it's very seldom that you're like, okay, sure. It's always when it's something that you really that is really terrific that you really want. You're kind of like, oh, I gotta do this somehow. I don't know, but
this is another example of the shift in my collecting philosophy in the last few years, just like the Titans poster, which is I want to make sure I have at least one really amazing Perez example from something he worked on.
Yeah.
So this is the Future Imperfect example. The Titans poster is the best Titans example I will ever myself personally believe I will find. I need to find a real.
That's saying something too.
Yeah. So.
Well, I've got another piece here.
Oh yeah.
This is a great page. I always love Wonder Man and Beast interactions, and this is a classic.
And this concept, this Mr. Muscles concept with some sidekick on a children's show where he's about to get hit in the face with a pie, just tickled my funny bone when that first came out. It was absolutely hilarious stuff. And I went back, and I think there are only 4 pages that have Wonder Man in the Mr. Muscles getup. And I have.
What issue is this from?
This is 194. Am I correct?
Somewhere around there for sure. Yeah.
I was just curious. Very cool.
So this is like just hilarity between and you're right. It's that interaction between Wonder Man and the Beast. This was just that perfect little bite-sized morsel of how their relationship worked. And and you can just imagine the next panel that gets cut away because of Captain America with poor Simon standing there. Love it.
Head
Love
in
it.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, he spoiled that.
You have some great character bit pieces, Michael. I remember I think I wrote to you about one of the Hercules pages that you had from that it was like that fill-in issue from the Simonson run where
Oh yeah.
yeah, and you had like that really great sort of like character page that it's just like the whole thing is about humor as opposed to like superheroics. And
well, that's again because I love the interior so much, because I love the panels so much. That's one of the things I look for is like, will this amaze me, amuse me, whatever it might be, and
right.
Yeah, those kinds of pages I'm always drawn to, and most collectors are like, I don't want a page with a joke on it. I want a good battle scene. I want a woman stripping. I want something, that's like, no, this is funny. This is great. I can pull this out and enjoy just this one page. That's awesome.
Right. Well, it's your gregarious personality.
Well, thank you, sir.
I think it's funny too. I always think of like I have a lot of Ramita pages where like Spider-Man and Jameson are bantering, and he says, and Spider-Man says, "Oh, the Grimm brothers, you can't even make it in a Grimm Ghost Stories book or whatever, and Grimm stories and stuff like that." And he throws a newspaper at Jameson, slapstick like that. I get into that stuff. I think that's cool. The brothers Grimm have nothing on you, stuff like that.
But it's not a pie in the face, though.
No, it's not a pie in the face.
Or a bad Tarzan suit.
Yeah. Somebody made a comment. It was right around. I know. Remember when they said Michael posted a homage from Rocky from when he was doing the commercials in Rocky 1. Mm-hmm. I said there is a scene from that where he was like a caveman doing that cologne commercial or something.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's like, I can't be doing this.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Mike.
Yeah. That was pretty good, Mike. Yeah, I got to say.
I'm embarrassed to say that as a Philadelphia native, I've never watched Rocky.
What?
Wow.
Rocky's a classic, man.
As soon as social distancing is over, I'm driving over there with my copy of Rocky, and we're sitting down, Michael. Then I'm gonna leaf through the 40 Italias behind you.
Did you ever see Rocky 2 or 3?
No, I've never seen any of them.
Oh man, wow. Number 3 with Mr. T. Mr. T's bantering at him when they give him his statue. He goes, "Hey, you got a big mouth,
Man.
I think you might have a career as a Sylvester Stallone stand-in.
Mike, you've been to Philly before.
Hey, you got a big mouth,
This is me and Lovitz's town,
Oh, I love the Rockies, man.
We're happy to listen to your Rocky imitation.
Hey, they won last week, so congrats.
I think Mike's imitation of Rocky or Sylvester Stallone's is going to definitely beat yours, whatever yours is.
Yeah.
I defer to Berkey on that one.
You're not going to try.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch from Perez to another favorite of mine.
Ah, yes.
Oh, nice.
I remember that one.
And Michael colored it himself.
Wow.
Now, remember how earlier I was saying how cool it is to read through, sequential pages. The only thing that's missing is the color.
So you were sitting home one day, it was raining in LA, and you're like, I got these crayons.
It's true. My last name is really, was it Orzakowski?
Olaf?
Yeah. Olaf, yeah.
Steve Olaf.
This was Olaf, right. This was Olaf. No, when done by a professional and when it looks this good, I love the colored pieces. I think
it looks really good. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah,
I was just kidding about the crayons.
I know, but this page is really cool also because of it's got the entire team kind of
right.
The detail in the chair behind Arcade is astounding. Just
the woodwork,
woodwork and everything is just ridiculous. It's a great X-Men page that I, again remember reading as a kid, and at this point I was getting my comics in the mail by subscription because the 7-Elevens were inconsistent.
Yes, they were.
You know, what a cliffhanger! Oh my God, what's going to happen next time? So
Yes.
And not
7-Eleven,
not
Wawa.
everyone can look good in that bow tie is the thing, you know. I mean, it's fabulous.
I always thought that spinning the hat is what real, you know, besides throwing the cards and spinning the hat, it just really pops this one. You've had this for a long time too.
yeah, I really love this page. It just speaks to me and I don't know why necessarily. I just look at it and it's just like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
It definitely has, like, to me, almost like a Joker feel, you know, with the cards and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
and this is early arcade, right? It's like his second appearance, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right. He had been in the Marvel team up.
Yeah, 65, 66, and then so maybe second or third appearance, second story. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Great piece.
Yeah, Spidey's in the next issue. I remembered 123, right?
Yeah.
He does.
Look who just chimed in there in the comments. Our old
It's the other half. The other half of your roadshow.
Oh boy.
What do we have? Oh, yeah. Nick keeps bugging me to buy that page.
does it?
He's not going to
I
leave yet.
continue to politely decline at this stage, but
Yeah. Doesn't have Submariner on it. He don't want it.
Or Green Lantern, or Flash.
exactly.
Daredevil.
All right, let's see. I got a few more here, but yeah, that was one of my favorite storylines from their run on X-Men. Honestly, watching them in the pinball machine and whatnot, that was great.
Yeah,
You'd never see heroes get put in a situation like that, but with that story,
Colossus as the proletarian, loved that. That was, you know, he's brainwashed. It was great stuff.
it was.
Oh yeah, Trigon.
Yeah, the aforementioned Baxter. When they did the Terror of Trigon storyline, and George inking himself at this point, and it's interesting because he started inking his covers early in the run, and they were okay, but he wasn't really great at inking himself initially. Like that DC Comics Presents double page splash I just picked up, which is very cool. With all of the co-stars from the first 36 issues. Really cool piece. But you can tell in that piece, that's George early inking himself.
Mm-hmm.
This is the point where it's like, all right, if I'm going to put the detail into the pencils, I'm going to put even more detail into the inks. And there's a page I have from Action 650 where he shows the villain teleporting away. And it's literally, he did it by hand, all of these little dots to show that he's fading away.
Yeah.
And it's like hundreds of tiny little dots that, you know, he did himself because he was inking himself.
Most people would have thought that was like Zipatone or something, but it was ink, right?
Yeah, no.
That's amazing when guys do that detail, that much detail.
So this is one of those kinds of, like, I'm just blown away by the evilness of Trigon, the work ethic of George. It just summarizes why I love his work so much. It's just it's so engaging. And once again, you know, you look in certain areas and the bridge that's being blasted, and you can see the bodies that are on there that are making up the bridge, and all of these things. It's just he's just what a fantastic artist.
The second set of eyes on Trigon on this piece has always disturbed me. That second set of eyes, they are disturbing.
Glowing with power.
Yeah.
I didn't see that until just now. Now I am disturbed.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that upper set of eyes. I thought it was just like sort of like little curly hairs, but you're right.
Hiding behind the eyebrows, the second set of power glowing eyes, full of lust and evil.
And the really cool thing about this that I don't think people paid as much attention to at the time, and it was very smart on their part. This is only the second time Trigon appears in a storyline. He was in the very first storyline, and he doesn't pop up really until issue 5. And even then, I don't think you see much of him. It's mostly in issue 6. And then they don't bring him back again until this Baxter run, which is, you know, after issue 50 comes out. So
You know what? I never put that. I mean, I read that run and loved it as a kid, and I never put that together. But you're right. You're right. And in that earlier storyline, it was at least one of the issues was drawn by Kurt Swan, not
That's
George.
right. That's the 5. Yeah. So
this is the first time I noticed the other set of eyes as well, and I have to say that somebody needs to buy him like bifocals for Christmas.
I mean, the guy is like the Beast of 666 with the antlers and the second set of. I mean, he's just
Yeah, when I saw him, I was thinking like Rudolph. Yeah.
Well, this is Christmas.
Rudolph.
I guess technically it's his 3rd appearance, because in the Tales of the Titans miniseries where they did Raven.
Oh yeah, the origin of Raven.
He appears, but he's not really. I don't consider him part of that storyline. That's an actual storyline involving him. It's just he makes a cameo.
Yeah.
So, but this is really the only, and it was like Marvel's attitude, or at least Dan Slott's attitude with Doctor Doom, which was he's the big bad. He shouldn't be in every other issue. Just like the Joker shouldn't be in every story. The Joker should be something special, like this Joker War they just finished.
Except for Lex Luthor and Joker, DC was very good with that, with not overusing the villains. I can't say that as much of Marvel, although they're better written stories in general, but they did overuse a lot of villains.
So, and that's the other thing, why I love Titans so much, was I grew up as a Marvel fan, giant Marvel fan, much more than DC. At that, in the late 70s, DC, generally bored me. It was just, one-off storylines mostly. How many different ways can we find weaknesses for Superman that he then overcomes? Oh, we can do aliens and magic, and every once in a while kryptonite. But it was like, all right, it's the same story over and over and over again. Marvel at least told an ongoing tale, a saga that built, year after year, and they remembered, oh, this happened last year. Let's see this little footnote, and you're like, oh, you're right.
Stories, I like that.
So taking Marv Wolfman and George to go from Marvel to DC and basically do a Marvel book that DC, just happened to include 3 DC characters, because the other 4 they created, 3 they created and 1 they kind of repackaged, and changed. It was like reading a Marvel book. So
it was epic at the time. I mean, and people don't remember, but Teen Titans outsold Burn X-Men at the time. At one point, I was reading both. I'm sure you were too, and I was enjoying both for some of the same and different reasons. And they both were epic. But Teen Titans, I was probably more drawn to in I think I was in middle school at the time.
No, that was like the only DC book I read, and it was because of George.
I'm gonna need to see those sales figures.
We'll find them. There's a cron somewhere that it lists.
Yeah, no, that's true. People do forget that. And even with artwork, years ago I used to say, wow, it makes no sense that Burn X-Men is multiples of George's Titans work, because those of us that grew up on it, we remember both probably in an equal way, and it never made sense to me that there was such a price disparity.
Yeah, no, I agree. It confused the heck out of me, but since I was buying a lot of the Titans pages, I wasn't complaining.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a T-shirt like Mike's that says X-Men is greater than Titans.
XM greater than NTT. Because we got to make it like an algebraic thing, so people are like, well, "What is he talking about?"
And we all did it.
I'll be okay as long as you use the equal or greater than symbol.
There we go.
All right, I got
ASM greater than both of them. I'm just saying.
Mikey.
Yeah.
He can't help himself. He is
That's for another
wired.
episode. That's for another episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was this episode.
Oh yes,
nice.
I just reread this story last week. Yeah.
So when I was a kid growing up, my brother used to get comics, and there was one time when I went with him to the local 7-Eleven where they had the spinner racks, and he was there buying his Superman, and I don't remember if he also bought Justice League, but and I came across this thing that I'd never seen before, this Fantastic Four comic book, and I was like, and it had this giant rocky character on the cover fighting some guy in a cape, and I was like, this looks interesting, and I started paging through it, and I was like, wow, this artwork is amazing, and I bought it, and that was FF 165. So the first comic I ever bought for myself.
Oh wow.
Was this issue, and so kind of cool to be able to finally get a page from that particular issue. I've had pages from 164, which is the first part of the story, for a while, but 165, it took me a while to find a page, and someday I'll find more of them.
Found a good one.
Yeah,
that's a
no
great
complaints
page.
on this one.
It's a great page. You had the splash with Marvel Boy, right? With the close up of his face where he's looking very, very crazy.
Yeah, the 164 splash. I think
Yeah.
Mike got it from me at one point also.
Okay. Last page splash, I believe.
No, it was a mid story.
Mid.
Splash.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great page. And of course, people thought when George did his work on Marvel 2-in-1 that Quasar and Marvel Boy were the same, and they were mistaken identities, and of course, they were two different characters.
Right, and it was interesting, and again, that shows the Marvel way of thinking, which was at the end of this storyline. I don't know if you remember, Will.
I do.
The Mr. Fantastic realizes that these bracelets are sucking energy from the sun, and so he creates cloud cover to block the sun, because ultraviolet obviously doesn't have any bearing on it, but so that's how the FF is able to get the upper
they
hand
overload
on
him, and he kind of just explodes or something.
Right. He starts to draw more and more on the sun, and suddenly the clouds clear, and so they overload and it disintegrates him, which is weird. But those bracelets survive, and it's those bracelets that are given to Wendell Vaughn to become Quasar. So they are related in that sense, that they were able to take this powers and give them to someone else.
No, but they look very much. They're blonde-haired guys, the same feature. They look very much alike. Wendell Vaughn is like a a few years younger looking than, I don't remember Marvel Boy's real name, but
let this be a lesson to you guys. Need to use sunscreen.
Are those bracelets in your double spread splash with all the characters' items?
What's that?
Remember that double spread splash? It has everybody's little masks and everything.
Yeah.
Is that the thing that the plants are in?
No, those are Captain Marvel's, I think.
Oh, those are Captain Marvel.
But Quasars are in the picture somewhere.
Are they in there too? I was wondering. That's pretty cool. I noticed, not to go back to that, but I thought it was cool that, because being a Spidey fan, they had Spidey's mask. They even had the Venom costume in the upper right corner too, of that double spread splash you have.
Right. The trophy.
Both costumes in there. For Spider-Man, I thought that was pretty cool.
If he says Spider-Man one more time, I'm turning his mic off.
I mean, for that amazing book. Amazing.
Was J. Jonah Jameson's cigar in there? Because I didn't see his cigar.
Bill, I'm glad you said it, because I cringe just about every episode. It's like, how many times has he said Spider-Man?
Yeah, that was a great.
I feel like one of us needs to come on the show with the J. Jonah Jameson cigar.
That is a great.
Mike wants to talk about Spider-Man.
We love you, Mike.
Roll the next, please.
Hey, and speaking of Spider-Man, though, the last piece.
Oh, now I couldn't remember what the last one was. Now, as soon as you said that, I know what it is.
Spider-Man.
Yay!
Spider-Verse.
Now, I think I saw this in Sal's booth, right? Was it?
That is cool.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Sienkiewicz.
Is that a specialty piece, or was it a cover, or what is that exactly?
So one of the reasons I selected this is one of the cool things in my life is that I'm able to combine this amazing hobby and this passion of collecting art with my work, because I represent a number of creators in the comic field, including Bill Sienkiewicz. And so this piece was particularly cool for me, not just because it's amazing,
but
spectacular. It's sensational.
I think it's spectacular, frankly.
It's friendly and neighborhood. It's just such a
And
great
it's super.
Yeah.
It's super. It tells a super story.
That's spectacular.
And it's adjectiveless. It's just
Adjectiveless Spider-Man.
And it's hammy too.
yeah.
And it's sort of a great Marvel team up.
So
And it's also Gwen-like.
But so for me, the cool thing about this, aside from the just beautiful work that Bill does, and this, just to be clear, this is not the final piece. So I helped Bill when he was negotiating to do a poster for the production. He was hired by Sony to do a poster, and in doing the poster, he does them at different sizes. And then gets approvals, and so this was his next to final version of the final poster that he did. So this is closer
what size is this, and what size was the poster?
I think it's a little bit bigger than 11 by 17, so it's probably 13 by 19.
Okay.
Who's the head of the villain?
14 by 20, something like that.
Kingpin.
The final poster was much closer to poster size.
Yeah.
And I just love I love the Kingpin rendition. I love the colors are amazing. The positioning of the different spiders, each one unique. Bill is just such a gifted artist. He just turns in astonishing work.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And this was for Into the Spider-Verse, correct?
Correct. It wasn't used as like a lobby poster, but it was used in it was for a poster that I think it was either internally distributed or done for like the director. I forget exactly where it ended up being targeted, but just the coolest final piece, and to be able to get this, which was one step away from the final, I thought it's sitting there. It hasn't been sold. I kind of have to grab this and
right.
This.
Where's the noir Spider-Man? He's not there.
I know, but he's probably in the background somewhere because he doesn't really swing.
That's true. He's not a swinger.
Everybody's joining in over there. It's a web of characters. Nick mentions. Rick says, "I marvel at this piece and the tale it tells." And Ian Joseph,
beautiful Marvel tale. That's right.
Yeah,
we have
a lot of Spidey titles, Mike. We got to give you that, but you
there are.
Make mention of them.
All right, so Mike, you got to be happy. I'm talking about Berkey. You got to be happy with all that Spider-Man talk we just did.
I'm damn proud of these people here. Damn proud. I mean, darn proud.
And in case you were wondering, no, it was. I saw it pop up. It was more than $2,099.
They meant, yeah.
So listen. You mentioned that you represent some artists. Would you care to talk not so much about that, but the seminars that you've held at some conventions over the years?
Sure. I've been a regular at San Diego now for more than 25 years. This year was the first time I missed San Diego in more than 25 years. I back in the days when I was working with Nick and we were doing the comic vending as retailers, we would go to San Diego, and about the time that I sold out of that business and got back just into doing full-time regular legal work, was I believe it was 1994. I'm going to say 94. And so I was attending one last time and saw that they were doing a seminar on self-publishing, and it was Colleen Doran was the creator who was doing this little workshop on self-publishing. And so before that happened, I found her in Artist Alley and went up and introduced myself and said that I was planning on attending, and that I was an IP attorney, and that if in the midst of it any questions came up on a legal level that she didn't feel comfortable answering, and I'd be happy to, to chime in or help out. And she said to me, "No, you must join me up front." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." So I got to sit with her, and we went through, her hour presentation, which was great fun. In the midst of it, one of the attorneys from one of the comic publishers with whom she had a history kind of heckled a little bit, telling, saying, "Well, that's not really, but that's not quite." And, I basically came to her defense and helped her win the battle with the detractors. And so we became great friends, and she's been a client ever since. And that was my kind of first taste of doing a seminar at San Diego. And so the following year, I put in to do a panel about copyrights and trademarks for comic creators, and was selected to be able to do it. So, I started doing these every year, and it started in a room which held like 30 people. It was in the mezzanine level of the old section where they had these little rooms. It wasn't the big conference rooms on the upper level. It was these little things where they would put the tables that were like 8 people could sit, kind of thing. And they had 3 or 4 of those tables. And after 2 or 3 years, it used to be like standing room only, and then people standing in the hallway. So they kept moving me to bigger rooms. Then I kept adding more topics and adding more speakers. So now each year I do 3 90-minute sessions about the intersection of, mostly IP law with comics and creators. So the first day is just like basics of trademarks and copyrights. The second day, I deal with monetization, so licenses, contracts, selling your IP, dealing with Hollywood, any of those kinds of things. And day 3, I now do a panel of other lawyers who will talk about slightly more esoteric topics. So we might talk about, fair use or protecting your IP online, through social media, whatever it might be, those kinds of things. So more in depth. I get a lot of attorneys actually show up also because we offer continuing legal education credits for California attorneys, and it's just been great. It's a lot of fun, and every year is different because there's no script. There's no one thing to talk about. I just kind of go into the room and I start, and people ask questions, and that takes us in one tangent, and then people ask something else and takes us in a different tangent, and eventually someone asks about the poor man's copyright where you mail it to yourself, and why can't I just do that? And we debunk that myth and all those things. So it's been lots of fun, and I've done it at I've done it in New York, LA, New Jersey, once in Florida, but mostly it's been San Diego and at WonderCon where I do most of it. Just easier to get to these days than.
And what's interesting, in between when you're doing panels, and I've passed you when you're preparing for one of these, you're working out art deals.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. There was a time, it's like 3 or 4 years ago, I forgot which year it was, when I said to myself, I'm not taking anything with me, no art for trading, no nothing. I'm just going to actually enjoy the show. I'm going to have a show where I've done all my deals in advance. I've dealt, I've spent my 8 hours negotiating with Anthony. Mike and I just did something through the mail, so I don't have to worry about that. And I can just like wander around and see what's actually in the show. And I was like, it's amazing how much is actually there outside of the art dealers.
And then what happens is the guy that wants legal credits says, okay, I got these original art pages. I want the legal credits. And then,
Well, trust me, I've had more than one client ask if I'll take art instead of money for doing contract reviews or things. So
and your answer is, well, depends on what type of art.
Yeah,
my answer is I will pay you for that art, and then you can pay your bill. But that's
a good way.
I had no idea I could finance your legal services with my comic art collection. That puts a whole new light on things, Mike.
Oh, you absolutely could. Yes. You get many hours of legal services for some of your pieces.
Well, I should have probably talked to you, Michael.
Since you're so close by, if I get into legal trouble, like when I'll call you from jail. Michael, you always wanted that Kirby cover that we discussed. I'm kind of like in.
Well, I have to admit that the criminal stuff is the one area where I'm a little bit outside of my realm of comfort. And in fact, because I was initially behind the scenes and consulted with concerning this whole John Buscema stuff that just went on a month or two ago.
Oh, the stuff that was stolen, those pieces.
The John Buscema stuff. A couple months ago is all I'll say.
Okay.
I don't like to use the word stolen.
Okay. Well, when the Buscemas went to look for it, it wasn't there.
The stuff.
That's true, and at least one person in the Buscema family wasn't aware it was missing.
So it was liberated.
The stuff.
You're not getting any more out of him.
Liberated.
Stick with the stuff, like Michael said.
But I had to hand it off because once it started hitting the criminal realm, it was like I can't. I'm doing a disservice to be involved at this point. So
okay.
Well, Glenn has some intellectual properties, so maybe at one point, if he sort of revitalizes his writing career, he will consult with you, and depending how deep, maybe something on the wall behind there can be exchanged for a certain number of hours, or
at least having a look through those Otoyas, the 47,000 Otoyas that are behind you.
Yes, and I should have consulted with you before filling out a trademark request because I actually got turned down. You probably could have been. You could have given me some good advice before I had done that. So
it's not too late. We can refile.
It did say I could refile. That sounded pretty concise, but maybe I'll tell you what it was afterwards.
You'll email me the serial number. I'll take a look at the file and I'll tell you how we could best proceed.
That would probably.
But if I may, Bill, you need to zoom in on the wall behind you so Michael can get a better look of.
There's not anything up there. I don't hang any of the good stuff anyway. So
one of the things I wanted to. I know you don't like your guests to do this, but one of the things that's not posted in my CAF that just shows how much of a connection I have to George and George as the source of all things wonderfulness.
No, we like you to do this. Is that
at one point, apparently he was getting ready to throw out all kinds of stuff from his studio, which had things like these. Let's see if I can get
prelims.
Wow, look at that!
Oh wow,
all these prelims.
Holy moly!
Holy cow!
Look at the logo work. Good.
I know.
I'm so upset with you for doing this, Michael. How dare you?
Dang.
Yeah, we never want you to do stuff like this. I mean,
oh my gosh, this is this is awful devastation.
You're literally going to throw this stuff out.
So they're like thumbnails from complete issues of Action that when he was doing Action comics in the 640s to 650s.
Are those those are full size or they're small? They're small.
They're 8.5 by 11.
Wow.
I think Bill the cat's tongue just got an inch longer. He's like pretty excited.
And the really fascinating thing about looking at his thumbnails, at least for the Action, and you can see it kind of on this page, is all the stuff's really rough until he draws Superman, which is pretty detailed.
Wow.
You're telling me he was going to just get rid of this stuff?
Yeah, they were just lying around. It was just stacks of papers. So, and I have a box here filled with photocopies.
Thank goodness you liberated those, Michael.
And you just say, hold on, George, don't take the trash to the curb yet. I'll be happy to collect it for you.
And even here, it's like I just have photocopies of the pages that I guess either he threw out or he's done away with, but all kinds of
yeah.
Sometimes just penciled, some penciled in ink.
Amazing.
Copies. So I've got all kinds of cool things here over the years. And I don't know if you guys are aware to a degree, but the sorry, that's why you don't like people doing it. They disappear from the screen.
We're off script and off camera.
when DC did the Teen Titans Games graphic novel a few years back. I was one of the catalysts there because I had all the original art from the unpublished work that was done. It was incomplete. It was, I think, 60 some pages of art that he had penciled in, some of which were inked by Alvey, most of which were just pencils. And so we kept pushing and pushing and pushing, saying, hey, you should do this. Any time I would see George and Spencer would mention it and all kinds of stuff. It's like, hey, if you're not working on anything right now, this could be something cool. You could just finish this, and wouldn't that be neat? And finally the time came when there was a hole in the schedule, and they came back to it. And I was the biggest barrier at that point as well, because I had all these beautiful pages by George that were full pencils. I mean, full detail, beautiful pencils. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to have them inked. They're so pretty in this form. I don't know, who's going to ink them. Will they be nicer? Will I regret that I don't have the pencils any longer? But we were able to work stuff out. So they were able to ink the pages, all but a few, which they did on Blue Line. So I got to identify like a small handful that I said, I want to keep these as pencils.
Nice.
That's great.
And you can ink the rest, but these keep as pencil, and they blue lined them. So that was kind of cool.
That is. I didn't realize you had. I remember a few of those you had. I didn't realize you had all of them.
Yeah, the games was sold as a set. I want to say that Kevin Eastman got them at one point, and then John got them, and then Mandel got them, and then I got them from Mandel.
And they still stayed a set. That's amazing through all those.
Yeah. Yeah, luckily between John and Dave, it was easy to keep. They had that set mentality when you have something like that.
Yeah.
Especially because it was unpublished, so it wasn't like you could sell someone their favorite page, because no one had ever seen it, so they didn't have a favorite page.
Right.
And those pages are all like twice upside or large art size. Yeah.
So I still have a good chunk of them, but not the whole group anymore, and certainly not the entirety of what they ended up publishing at the end. So.
And was it published as a game?
No, as a graphic novel.
As a graphic novel.
That was just the title. The title was Game.
Okay.
And the reason I thought of that is because I was in these photocopies. There were actually copies of like 3 pages of the story outline, but neither Marv nor George had a copy of the whole thing anywhere. So they kind of had to look at the pages, try to remember what was going on, and kind of recreate what the story was and would turn into. So it was a very interesting process to come back to for them, 20 years after the fact, to try to dive back in. So interesting.
Well, I'm envious of your collection of George's work, I'll tell you, because George is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the hobby. I mean,
Totally.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I got to have lunch with him a couple times, and I always had my young son with me, and he was always gracious. Did a little sketch for him, and yeah, I mean, some of my best experiences were around George or with George at different times. So, yep, he's a great guy.
Other than just loving his work, I remember one of the early times that I met George, and probably 2 or 3 of the early times, just watching him interacting with his fans. He's the biggest fanboy too. He's so nice, and he's such the cheerleader for comics in general. That's what I always loved that about him. That he didn't have an ego. It was all, it's comics. It's the comics industry. It's great. It's amazing. I'm so glad that you guys are fans. Kind of a mentality, that the kind of thing that Stan would exude as well, in terms of just being a cheerleader for the form, for the industry, was always the best thing about George's appearances. So I'm sorry he's retired, but we've had many years of beautiful work from him, and he remains one of the nicest guys, not only in the industry, but just in general, one of the nicest guys.
I completely agree. Yeah, actually, there was a farewell speech that he gave, I think, about a year ago that I just watched before we went online, and it's the same thing. He's very gracious, and it's all about the fans and the opportunity he had. Yeah, he's a very humble man.
Yeah.
Bill, there's a question you may want to take at the very end of the comments there.
Sure.
Just a split second faster, Brunswick. That's exactly what I was going.
From Ian Joseph. Hello, just wondering, is there any appraisal art agency or where to know what the art is worth? Thanks. I mean, I was going to say, I think the guys around here could, probably any one of them could, take a look at work that you have and give you an idea on the value of it. That's usually, in my opinion, probably the best way to go is to, to deal with people who are selling it to give you a good idea of the value of the artwork. If you're a little hesitant on that, you can always check out Heritage Sales if you really wanted to find another solid reference before approaching any of the guys here. But
and of course, there is market data on comic art fans. That
I was just going to say that's a great resource.
It's not free though, so that's the.
But it's not. But given what it is, it's not expensive at all. It's a really great deal for the year, and you have like phenomenal information going back years.
It's a very small investment if you're really going to collect art, because that whatever it is, 75 or 100, whatever it is for the year, is so nominal compared to what you can spend. And if you make a mistake, and
one purchase that saves you $100 is, and you're more than even.
That is true. I don't. Thank you for mentioning it. I don't ever usually, toot my own horn, but it's true. We have sales history for all the dealers that I've ever worked with, because we've always just anything that a dealer has ever marked as sold, I stored that data, and so I've got data for some of the earliest guys like Mike or Anthony that I worked with going back to 2008 to 2006 or thereabouts. So it's a great resource to not only know what art was priced at when it sold, but also just even that these art pieces existed. I think market data is great just for that. When somebody's looking for a piece that they've never seen on market and they want to know if it was ever available at one time, it's a great resource for that. I've got data on eBay back to, I think, around that same time, 2008, and Heritage is giving me all of their data. So, I mean, Heritage, you can search their stuff for free if you have an account, but we've kind of consolidated all that. And I've brought in other auction houses too, Profiles in History. They would probably be the only other big one. Comic Link does not want to share their data with me or anyone, and I haven't convinced Comic Connect to give me the little bit of data that they have as well. One day, perhaps. I've tried, now that we've been doing a lot of more market reporting, and I'd like to go back to Comic Link and see if I can't convince them that with all the reporting that we're doing, that there is, it'd be nice to be able to include them in those reports where I can talk about their sales history. So, maybe at some point I'll be able to get their data too.
And like Glenn was saying, even if you save $100, it pays for itself. I just picked up a John Buscema Thor 183 page. I think it was 183. I had no idea if it was $1,500 page or if it was a $5,000 page, and I did some research and found that no other pages from that issue had ever sold. So that was kind of weird, but obviously he did the issue before and the issue after. So I've looked at comparables and I was able to make a deal for it that I think was, a little bit under probably where it would go at auction, probably 500 less than it would have gone at auction. So I saved myself, $500. And
sounds like you owe Bill $500.
Yeah, he's gotten more than that out of me over the years. Trust me.
Oh yeah, no, without question. That's I know. I did a little online con with Anthony on Sunday. I just was helping him sell a few pieces, and after it was all over, I'm like, what's my cut on all this? That I just did all this legwork for you. So, but that's true though. I mean, knowledge is power, right? I mean, and the market data is very good for that. Yeah. See. And
Professor L.
I'll take it.
So,
well, I guess Ian has a follow-up question.
Yes,
if you want to email any of us after the show and show us what your what your cover looks like, I'm sure we can give you some range or estimate as to what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Turner is tough. Turner is a tough one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But well, this has been a lot of fun, Michael. This is everything I hoped it would be. This is great.
Everything you'd hope for and less.
And less.
It was amazing and spectacular.
I was going to say, if only there weren't so many Spider-Man references throughout the
There's
Otherwise,
never lack of those.
No, it was great having you bringing us a little Lovitz joy into our universe is an
There we
exciting
go.
thing. So we're happy to have you.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. And so we will be off next week. That's it's our holiday break, but we will be back in 2 weeks with Jim Warden. So on the 29th.
Look at us. In the same month, we have like two of the nicest guys in the hobby. Seriously.
Oh yeah, me and Glenn are here every week.
Yeah, I mean, how much nicer can you get?
Bill, do I have to keep putting up with this?
The mute button is never far from my mouth.
Well, Will, were you the one who invited Mancuda?
Guilty.
Then they're just getting revenge on you.
And we'll keep
and just
that monthly stipend as well, Will, to keep you quiet.
and just think that is your co-ruler that you're calling out like that.
He would expect no less from me. Trust me. I was we were just rewatching Veep from the beginning, and I hadn't realized that he was in 2 different episodes. I saw him the one time. I didn't realize the second time he was in Veep. He actually had a speaking part. I think he voted in the Senate, or the House, or wherever.
Oh yeah. He's a congressman or a senator or something. Yeah, that's right. Not the most convincing congressman.
Pretty much the way you would picture him.
You're expecting something to just fly out of his. Well, maybe a convincing congressman for today.
Exactly.
Maybe.
A precursor for
right. He was
ahead of his time.
He's a bit of a futurist.
Yeah, he's ahead of his time. Seriously.
And we can answer another question here from Grant. The market data shows what it's listed for, but not the final sale price. Yes, that's
Dealers.
that is very, very true. We don't. What happens is when it goes into our market data, it goes into there when they market sold. But that doesn't mean that that's what it sold for. It doesn't mean necessarily that it was all cash deal. It could be partially trade. It's just when the dealer marks it as sold for their own records, we move it over at the price it was when it was marked sold. Because
I can answer this, Bill. Dealers are definitely more flexible.
Absolutely, because reps can't be flexible because at the end of the day, the art is not theirs. So
I'm going to give a different take, and I'll tell you why. How many reps have regular sales every year, 20% off, 30% off?
They do, but that would be when I'd say
when the artist decides.
The artist wants the sale. So, but he's saying, are they flexible? I mean, you're not going to go to Felix and say you're going to give me 10% off on that cover. I mean, boom, it's gone. So. At the end of the day, I mean, maybe a rep could have a little bit of flexibility on pieces that they've had to sit on for a while. But
that's probably true of dealers. They're going to be more, if it's been sitting for 2 or 3 years, whereas, asking for the discount and it was posted, 40 minutes ago and, can I get it for 20% off? Hell no.
I asked Albert for a discount on something I just bought from him. And it wasn't
crazy.
Well, I wasn't even thinking because it was one of those Bruce Timm pieces. And he said, no, and it'll be $35 to ship it. I was like,
as a buyer who deals with reps and dealers all the time, I can tell you that I'm going to take the lawyer answer. You guys are both right. Generally, dealers are the easiest ones to deal with because they generally own it. Consignments aside, and they've marked it in a way that there is room, if necessary, to do some wheeling and dealing. But I've also made some really great deals with reps, and I did this with Spencer Beck. I was a huge fan of the Thunderbolt series. I just loved that series. And
you have a different technique than most buyers, Michael. You're like, okay, I'll just buy the entire run.
That's what I did. I actually
of course, we're going to be flexible. I mean, you know, you want to come look at my inventory and buy like 20 pieces? Yes, I am very flexible with you.
And then he passed on he said, here's 60% of the Thunderbolts collection I had, Will, sell it for me. And then, you know, like half of that went down in the corner there to Mike. He's like, oh yeah, I'll buy. So you know, the love was shared all around. It was
Exactly.
I bought a bunch.
This is like an economy, little mini economy going here.
Right. But I'm just saying like not everybody has that same purchasing power. Like, usually they're trying to buy one piece or, you know, two pieces. And then it's harder to be as flexible as if, you know, you're just basically going to be feeding the artist for the next 3 years.
Right. And a lot of times dealers are selling work on consignment. They're going to have less wiggle room, if any wiggle room at all in those cases. So
dealers and reps are flexible, except when they're not.
Exactly.
Well, and generally, the better the piece, the less flexible.
Right. The higher demand pieces are,
That's very true.
Like everything in life, it pays to ask if
Never hurts to ask.
If you can do a discount. I mean, it always, you know.
As my old boss used to say, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yes.
True. But I will say sometimes people spend time asking for a small discount and the piece gets sold while they're waiting.
Right. If it's truly a demand piece, then obviously that's, you know, you better jump because
I'd say roughly half the clients just buy it, and the other half try to negotiate, and there's different.
I mean, that's the equation when we put pieces out for the first time. You know, a lot of times people will say, hey, can I get a discount? And while that's happening, somebody orders it off the site.
Pull the trigger. Yeah.
At that point, you're like, well, I think I'll take the full price. So
yeah,
that happened during the comic art weekend.
the Comic Art Live, the last one we had in November.
Yeah, where Glenn bought a piece that I was asking after and trying to get a discount with multiple pieces.
Oh, really?
That Iron Man page, the early Iron Man.
Okay. Right. Right. Well, when the price is right, you got to jump.
I know. I was looking to buy four of the pieces. He just targeted the one, and he got it done. Glenn.
I'm like having a flashback to that Captain Kirk film.
So if you want to sell it to me for just a few $100s above what you paid, I would take it.
Well, I understand. I just, those pages are so hard to find right now, and I just think it's.
Which page are you talking about?
It's Romita Jr. Iron Man page.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can talk, Michael. We'll talk after the show.
Okay.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been real.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you for showing up.
Happy holidays to everyone. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's to a better 2021.
Here.
Yes.
I'll drink to that.
right.
A double.